Hello, everyone. On behalf of St. John's School of Theology and Seminary, we extend a heartfelt welcome to this conversation. Spiritual directors on practical questions. What is my first next step? My name is Sam Rayberg, and I oversee the certificate in spiritual direction at St. John's. Our primary purpose tonight is to equip people with the perspectives and encouragement they need to explore the big questions that spiritual directors keep hearing in these challenging times. Whether you come to further discern if you're called to a ministry of listening or you're seeking to deepen your own prayer and study, you're in the right place. St. John's is rooted in the Benedictine tradition, which calls us to listen deeply, live communally, and receive Christ in one another. The spirit of soulful companionship guides our approach to this series as well. Tonight, we welcome the perspective of Sister Esther Wabowo, who is a member of Transfiguration Hermitage in Windsor, Maine. Transfiguration is a Roman Catholic and Benedictine contemplative community. In 2023, Esther completed her formation as a spiritual director here at St. John's. Out of a love for studying mysticism and the experience of God's presence, Esther continued on to pursue a Master of Arts in Theology, which she will complete next fall. She will tell you that her primary calling is to a ministry of prayer and spiritual companionship, although she helps supplement that calling through a ministry of baked goods, some items still to be popped in the oven tonight, we hear. You can learn more at transfigurationhermitage.org. This evening we'll have 3 parts. In part 1, Sister Esther will introduce a framework for praying with the question, what is my first next step? In part 2, she'll invite us to discuss our reflections in small groups. And in part 3, we'll return for shared Q&A. Now, let's take a moment to pause, breathe deeply, and ground ourselves in the Spirit before we begin. Sister Esther, over to you.
Welcome, everybody, to tonight's webinar. We ask for God to be present to us right now, tonight, at this moment with us. Let's begin with a welcoming prayer by Father Thomas Keating. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I welcome everything that comes to me today because I know it's for my healing. I welcome all thoughts, feelings, emotions, persons, situations, and conditions. I let go of my desire for power and control. I let go of my desire for affection, esteem, approval, and pleasure. I let go of my desire for survival and security. I let go of my desire to change any situation, condition, person, or myself. I open to the love and presence of God and God's action within. Amen. Thanks. So, welcome everyone. Today's theme is what is our first next step? But before that, it's this. Help, I'm stuck. Sometimes we are stuck in a pattern. We repeat the same thing, perhaps expecting different results. Yet, when nothing changes, we are unable to break away from that same old pattern. We're stuck. The goal for today's webinar is hopefully for us to be able to be aware of what is it that I am stuck with right now or today, and hopefully to have the ability to finally ask, what is our first next step, or what is my first next step? Hi, everyone. My name is Sister Anastasia. Next slide, please. And I am a sister, like what Sam already said, I am a sister of Transfiguration Hermitage. We live a life of solitude and prayer, and we're praying for each one of you as well as the whole world for all kinds of intentions and needs. I graduated from St. John's Spiritual Direction Certification Program in 2023. And there are some takeaways which you can see here on the screen from the program that will stuck with me day in, day out, both for my personal growth and for my spiritual direction sessions. One is listening with the ear of the heart, recognizing the strangers in each one of us, offering Benedictine hospitality to the strangers within. That is paving the path towards wholeness in union with God. And these 4 points is going to echo throughout the webinar tonight. Each one of us is called for a life of freedom, free from the slavery of what we call sin. But actually, I would prefer the term brokenness. According to the desert tradition, we are created good, all of us, without exception. In Genesis, God saw that all he had made, and it was very good. The desert fathers and mothers believed that we are like a gold coin, that we are inherently good. We just need to be polished to our original shine. Unfortunately, we were born and live in this broken world, which in turn made us develop unhelpful pattern in order for us to survive. And thus, we become fragmented. We are no longer whole as God created us to be. The more freedom that we attain, the less obstructed our relationship with God is. And the more we become whole as God created us. When we are stuck in our unhelpful pattern, we are like seeing God through a dirty pair of glasses. When we clean our glasses, see, we're dirty, we cannot see anything, but when we clean it, we can start to see God more clearly. When cleaning our glasses, it's like we're letting go of our unhelpful pattern. And we take a next step to be free from our healthy pattern. Our glasses become cleaner. We can see and have relationship with God in a more intimate manner. So basically, the long-term goal for this webinar is from stuck in reacting, we came to start responding. But the short term for this webinar tonight is just we notice unhelpful pattern and perhaps maybe take a concrete step forward in addressing them. So here are on your screen is a table of between reacting and responding. Reacting is usually immediately or automatic reply. It's a fight or flight system that is active. While responding is we are able to slow down, evaluate the situation, and choose, okay, what are we going to do or not to do? Reacting is from self-preservation, and it comes from fear, whereas responding is self-control, and it comes from respect and compassion, compassion for ourselves as well as for other people or other things. And reacting is usually only have a short-term outlook, and responding has a wider view, which is a long-term outlook. So next slide. And so here's the 1, 2, 3 step that me and Sam are able to work on. Number 1 is awareness. What unhealthy pattern I'm struggling with right now? And number 2 goes along with number 1 and number 3. We get curious. We get curious without being judgy. We have to try to be compassionate and hospitable to ourselves. We're trying to avoid self-blame or other things. We just get curious just for tonight. Be curious about our unhealthy pattern or unhelpful pattern. And then hopefully after this webinar, you can start to discern and act on your first next step. So next slide. So for the next 3 minutes, this is the activity part, which is the fun part. For the next 3 minutes, I would like to invite you all to be aware of your own unhelpful pattern. Unhelpful pattern can range from mild to extreme, from harmless to something that debilitating. For instance, for examples is procrastination, lashing out or anger management, um, to addiction, workaholic, addiction to internet, to Netflix, to drugs, alcohol, all kinds of things. So this unhelpful pattern can take many shapes and forms. But what I would like to remind you is in this process of these 3 minutes of free ride, try to be compassionate and be gentle while staying curious. So then if you could grab your pen and paper, and feel free to free write, no filter about anything that is evoked by one of these statements in your screen. Every time he, she, they, I always, every time I experience, I always, every time I'm in this situation, I always. And your time starts now. Okay. So for now, I would like to invite you. Sam will break you up, or Sam and Haley will break you up into small groups. And for 15 minutes, and I would like to invite you to stay compassionate for yourselves and for others, and stay as non-judgmental as possible. Within that 15 minutes in small groups, please take turns. If you are a speaker, share about one of your patterns that you are currently struggling with. As a listener, respond with one sentence beginning with, I notice, I wonder, or I appreciate. And if time allows, as a speaker, you can share about one or more observation that evokes for you from your partners in your small group.
Be thinking about what rose for you as you were listening to Esther. You might have a question that needs a little more clarification, or you might have a connection that you're making and would like to hear her perspectives about it, or something else may have come up in your small group session. But we invite you to be generous with your questions, because so often somebody else in the circle is thinking about something similar. Esther, you started us off tonight with the welcoming prayer, and one person had noticed that the welcoming prayer speaks of letting go of desires for security, control, and approval. In your experience, which of these tends to be the most challenging in spiritual direction, and how do you accompany someone who's wrestling with it?
Security and control is the hardest, but in my opinion, they both are closely related to each other. Like in some cases, so that we feel secure, some people tend to try to control their surroundings or other people so that they can feel secure themselves. And so to me, those security and control are sometimes, if not often, closely related to each other. And this is also the same case with the strangers within us. Like, I don't want to go too deep into the strangers thing, because if you join this CP program, you will learn more about these strangers within us. Spoiler alert. But then we have strangers within us, and these strangers is the one that usually cause us to have this unhealthy pattern or unhelpful pattern. And what usually works, whether the strangers is us who is struggling to feel secure and thus very controlling, very tense, or whether we are meeting other people, our directees, our friends who are struggling to feel secure and thus they're trying to control you or to control everything around them, is what usually helpful for us and for that person is usually to be patient, to stay gentle, to be compassionate, and to try our best to provide a safe space for them. And usually, in my experience, when they feel safe enough around us, they are usually less controlling and they are more open to change or even more open to let go of some things. But they have to feel safe enough to do so.
So one of the things I hear you describing, especially around that sense of security and control, is that ministry of presence. It, the agenda to resolve the discomfort for the person is relaxed in a sense, as you just described it. Patient, attentive. Um, that's a significant letting go of control, or a kind of letting go of control without letting go of a discipline or a practice. Lincoln had another question for you, Esther. He spent a lot of time discerning small next steps. So, how do you know when it's time to take a larger step, like changing careers, getting married, something like that? What's the difference you see in how to discern small versus large changes?
Well, small changes usually takes a shorter time because it usually doesn't involve a great deal of us, and the large changes is usually involve a more macro of our like other people, our significant others. And
So, people are making a series of small steps. How do you know when it's time for a big step? And what's the difference between the way we discern the small versus the large changes?
my own experience and the experience of my of me working with my directives is basically it involves more thinking, more kind of like more process.
Your mention of deliberation process, or the discernment process, also makes me think of the cutting edge of your title for tonight's question about what's my first next step. Like so many times, the small discernment seem to be experiments on the way toward a larger discernment. And there sometimes it seems like there's a watershed moment where the need for a larger discernment shows up, or these series of first next steps kind of crack the door open wide enough for us to see a little bit of the light. Edith's got a question there. There's a paradox in the welcoming prayer, which suggests that we let go of the desire to change ourselves, and the idea of taking steps to let go of difficult patterns. I wonder if you can talk about that a little bit.
From my perspective, the welcoming prayer is change that is we will it. So willfulness versus willingness. Change change can be motivated by many things. Sometimes it's prompted by the spirit, sometimes it's not. And I think anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I see the welcoming prayer, letting go of the desire to change ourselves is the change that is not prompted by the Holy Spirit, or the change that is not according to.
Edith, sounded like you might have something to add there too.
I've struggled with that prayer for years, so it's nice to be able to talk about it with people. There's a part where sometimes when we want to change, we're sort of rejecting ourselves. And that welcoming prayer might be wanting us not to reject that negative pattern in the sense of denying it or hating ourselves for it. But it is that thing of learning to accept ourselves and at the same time be looking for change. It's sort of a paradox to be able to do both at the same time. And yet, I think if we don't somehow find ways to do that both, we don't make progress, we stay stuck. And so I was hoping for somebody else to give me some help out of this paradox that I've been puzzling about for ages.
It's a delicate balance. I know it's like holding two opposite things with both hands. And this is an example. In one hand, I love this person dearly. I want only the best for her. And the other hand is holding, but she is so annoying. And so, how do we hold these two opposite feelings toward this one person together? And I think that's part of our spiritual exercise that we all have to go through, to hold these two things with curiosity, non-judgmental, but yeah, those two opposites exist at the same time.
Sue's got a question. Esther, could you say a bit about your experience with people whose gut and intellect are not in sync for determining their next step?
Well, I've had experience with somebody who live on his head, and he is very logical, and it's very hard to get inside and look in his gut or his heart or what's happening inside, because everything is here on the head. But if that's the case, or somebody who is kind of like, my gut's saying me this, and all the intellect is just goes down the drain kind of thing. What comes to my mind is, we as human being are created intellect, soul, emotions, and body. And this is another thing that also, well, I'm sorry if I soft sell this too hard. This is another thing that we're learning in this program, is to notice this tree, which is our body. What's happening to our body? What's happening to our minds? What are we thinking? And what do we feel? And this tree has, if we are fragmented, this tree is not going to sync. Usually what I do, if there is a directee who's struggling with that, is like, if he's a thinker, I would kind of invite him to, how do you feel about this? And probably nudge him a little bit about sharpening his heart and his gut feeling, instead of just living in the head. And if that person is extremely instinctive, I would try to invite, so what do you think about this?
I see also that Sister Elizabeth chimed in with some interesting insight, as did Anthony, about the previous question there, that the notion that the desire to change ourselves may actually be part of the search for finding ourselves. In other language, it might relate to a deepening sense of freedom, right? To continue Esther's observation about Ignatian spirituality along the way. And for Anthony, it's a tough teaching, because accepting letting go of the desire to change might mean continuing to live with a condition that is uncomfortable, that is painful, that is a kind of suffering. And so I think that is an important pastoral note. Thank you for your willingness to contribute that, Anthony and Sister Elizabeth. Reverend Elizabeth also had an observation, as she said, I ask myself, what is there about the other person that I do not like in myself? How have you found that to be a helpful kind of way to welcome that stranger?
That is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, what you called in your class as projecting ourselves. And I just recently encountered this very same thing about this case. And that's actually, if that happens to me, which happens to me very often, that is a call for self-reflection.
To return to your model, I was thinking about how that models that spirit of curiosity, like Sister Edith's observation about paradox. At least if I can identify the paradox, I'm experiencing an invitation to stretch my awareness. So I'm entering that place where I'm experimenting or exploring or trying to pay attention to the edges of what I already know along the way.
Dr. Elizabeth actually said a very important thing that in the progress of us trying to polish our coin is also a journey of self-discovery too.
Well, Sister Esther, as you've heard this collection of questions and led us through this evening, what final words of encouragement would you have for us?
I have 4 points, and number 1 is if you gain insights in this webinar and you are ready to take the next step, or if you don't, if you're still discerning, that's okay too. Thanks to the Spirit who have guided us and be present to us. And also your partners who are patiently and non-judgmentally, curiously listening to you. Also, if you haven't had any insight at all, or if you're still halfway there, I would invite you to continue to pay attention with the ear of your heart. We also continuously try to offer hospitality to ourselves as well as to others as we are able. We're not going beyond grace, but we're not falling behind grace. And also remember that the Spirit of God is always with us throughout our journey. Right here, this minute, this second, and the future. It's always with us. And what I would like to say is the Spirit of God and the God's whisper can come in many forms and shapes. It can come in the forms of gentle winds or gentle breeze. It can come from other people, the people that we care about or we love, or even the people that we don't like. And also it comes from the nature, it comes from even our animals here. This is our pets in the Hermitage. As you can see, our dog is actually leading the way, and that's also kind of like a Holy Spirit who is kind of like guiding us, walking in front of us. The Spirit can also be walking behind us too, to guard us. If you need just one takeaway, it's listening with the ear of the heart. If you have any more questions, our contact is right there on your screen. Thank you, Sam, for this opportunity.
And thank you, Esther, for sharing from your experience with many first next steps, both your own and those with whom you companion. We wish you continued blessings on that work. Thanks also to Hallie for helping us pull things off from the admission side of the coin. She helps day in and day out with things behind the scene. And to the rest, thank you for all you do to set aside times like this for holy conversation. We hope you found fresh insight, some mutual encouragement, and maybe even a nudge from the Spirit about how to keep praying with this question: what is my first next step? It's common for questions and experiences like this to make us hungry for even more. So if you've had a good experience with somebody you met, with an idea that you heard, and you found yourself in that curious place Esther described, we invite you to explore other opportunities with St. John's. The certificates in spiritual direction or Benedictine spirituality offer more than credentials. They're formation to becoming the kind of people who live into the questions that Esther has explored with us. Just imagine a world infused with more people who listen well, who hold sacred space, who help people find that security and belonging that they need to ask their own questions. That vision inspires the St. John's Learning Community. You'll soon receive an email invitation from us to offer your feedback. We very much appreciate your perspectives and building upon these and future events. Spiritual Directors on Practical Questions will be back this spring with Sister Edith Bogue, who's with us tonight. Sister Edith will focus on the question, can one meeting be enough? Talk about meeting the stranger, right? Can one meeting be enough? And then the Reverend Mark Wassler, founder of Chesapeake Bay Watershed Ministries and a 2024 graduate, will lead us this summer around the question, where is God made flesh? Save the dates. We'll wish you blessings until then.